Mr. Marks, Mrs. Smith, Ms. West, Ms. Holmes.
Here.
I'm sorry, Ms.
That's
Holmes.
okay. That's okay.
Mr. Stigley. Madam Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The special board meeting I'm sorry, invocation, please.
God, we thank you and we praise you for this day. Thank you, God, for allowing us to come together to take care of the business of your city. God, give us insight, give us direction, help us to make the right decisions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The special board meeting tonight is to have a budget workshop. I'll go ahead and turn that over to Rachel.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Okay, tonight we are here to discuss the proposed budget for fiscal year 2019. I handed out a work packet for you, and we'll be on the second page of that worksheet, looking at the proposed 18-19 budget. The first part of the sheet is just list the payroll. So we're going to skip over that, and we're going to go over the line items for the expenditures for next year. Okay, if you like, we're going to start with the office supply, if everyone could get into that. Okay, y'all ready? Okay, if you go down to where it says office supplies, I'm going to read off the proposed amounts for each line item that we're proposing for next year. Once I finish reading those off, if you have any suggestions or any changes that you would like to make, then we can discuss them at that time. For office supplies, $3,500. Fuel and lube, $1,500. Mining equipment, $3,300. Uniform and cleaning, $350. Board meeting expenses, $3,000. Other supplies, $1,200. The total for supplies and materials, $12,850. We go down to building maintenance. Building maintenance, $9,000. Equipment maintenance is $1,300. Motor vehicle, $800.
Okay, I just wanted to make you guys, if you look at the building maintenance, there's an increase of about $4,000. That's because we're taking on additional tenants and more space to be cleaned.
Okay, the rent, $51,000. Insurance, $1,600. Contingency, $85,000. Professional services, $90,000. Consultant, $110,000. Travel, $20,000. Dues, $7,500. Subscriptions, $400. Software, $12,000. Education and training, $17,000. Other contractual services, $50,000. Development, $2,500,000. Business park development, $200,800. 4B development, $1.2 million. Promotional programs, $70,000. Job training programs, $750,000. Water utilities, $2,400. Electricity, $48,000. Gas, $2,000. Communication, $25,500. And that is what I didn't go over was the payroll. And with the payroll and the expenditures is $5,243,200. Now, I know you've noticed that, like Mr. Baptiste pointed out, there were some line items that increased, and a lot of it had to do, especially utilities, the electricity. We have more tenants on the second and third floors, so it's costing us more for electricity. So we had to, and this year we had to make some amendments to that line item. So we're making adjustments for that for next year, so that we won't have to worry about that.
Also, when you look at the development for next year's fiscal year, we budgeted $2.5 million. We normally budget 1.5. We have some projects right now that we don't think we're going to close on until next year, that we have been engaged, like the Standard Alloy and also we're also working with motion industry. There's another one.
Echo.
Which one?
Echo. Standard Alloy.
All those things we've been looking at, but you guys have made some award, especially with Standard Alloy, and there was been some discussion with motion industry. So we're carrying that money over to next year because we know it's going to be a done deal. But we still want to have some additional money for future incentive. That's why we budgeted $2.5 million. Job training, if you look at last year, we budgeted $550,000. This year, we asking you guys if y'all want to. We asking it to increase by $250,000. We have had a tremendous increase. In fact, at last board meeting, you guys increased the truck driving program. We are working on another welding program that we this year you guys just funded a summer program for high school kids. Next year we want to expand it to all the high school and possibly do 40 kids maybe if we start early. We into a lot of training.
600,000.
Well, we actually no, it's an increase of 200,000.
600 according to this.
No, if you look at the budget, 250. We budgeted last year 555,000.
Okay, I got you. Never mind, I got you.
Yes,
you.
sir.
I was looking at. Okay.
So we're increasing it by 200,000.
Yeah. Okay.
If you guys
that's
want
good.
to.
No, I think that's a good idea.
And the other thing on this here is we have been working with industry, and you guys think municipal government is slow, but when you're working with those guys, it is real slow. I don't know. We hope this thing will kick off this year. It probably will not. Probably kick off next year. Some additional training. So we just want to have the money in the budgeted so that if something happens, we will be able to make use of it.
As far as the job training programs are concerned, are we going to cap that spending off at some number? I'm asking that because we can fund a number of things, but we can't fund everything. So is it going to be limited to certain things that I know we've been limited to, and is it going to cap at a certain number?
It's going to cap at as much as we could spend of it. Last year we only spent, Crystal, $55,000 so far, or more than that? Come up.
Last year, or are you speaking?
This year.
This year, it's right about 60,000, I think,
60.
so far.
We expected to spend 150, but we see a lot of things we've been working on is coming to fruition right now. And we just want to have the money. If the board wish, I could live I could live with 550,000. I just want to, I don't like to do a budget amendment. You know, I'd rather have the money than not have the money. But if you wish to bring it back down to 550, I wouldn't have no problem with that.
My only question was just to verify that we're just trying to fund what's already there, and it's not, we're going to just keep adding things to that particular line item as we move. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that something that could possibly continue to rise, or?
Well, yes, sir. We continuously look for customized training. A lot of the things that we're trying to do right now is, in fact, got one on the agenda, workforce training. You know, we have a lot of unskilled people here in this town, in Port Arthur, and with the workforce training, we actually pay the wages so that an employer could get an opportunity to evaluate that person before hiring them. So when we're paying the wages, it costs us more money. You know, you want to elaborate on that?
If you're speaking of the allocation, that won't. Whatever you all allocate today will be our cap of what we can spend. Right. But we do try to find more training opportunities to be able to spend those training dollars and get people trained. So right now, for instance, we have, you know, Lamar, and we're working with the school district and doing some training. So we've got a couple, but every time there's another training opportunity, if there's still money in that budget that you've all allocated, then we try to take advantage and get more people trained. So training contracts could increase. The allocated budget will not.
Okay, that's what I was talking about. Would it be any more contracts increase? I know that once the budget is set, you can't go over that. But training opportunities are things that we will continue to try to.
That's why we setting the bar high. Like I said earlier, you know, if the board wished to bring it back down to 550, I have no problem with that. Because we budgeted 550 last year. We did not spend all that money, but I see some increase in training opportunities this year, and I just like to have the money there.
Okay, just a quick question before we move forward. Is the year-to-date 75% of the budget, or it ends in,
This is September.
No, the year-to-date number?
Yes, ma'am.
Actual year-to-date number ends when?
Year-to-date is actual right now. And
As
as
of June 30th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 75% of the budget?
Yes.
Right.
That's 75% of what, okay.
And what you're seeing on this, on the sheet that Rachel gave to you, Madam Chairman, the estimate 1718, this is the projected end of the year amount that we're going to spend.
Right.
You know, so, you know, like, as of today on supplies, you got $2,975. At the end of the year, we're going to spend, $3,500. So that estimate 1718 is what we're projecting to be your end of the year budget.
So our estimated end-of-year budget is $2 million, and we're looking at it to be 5?
If you look at it, Ms. Holmes, if you look at your actual and your estimate, if you look at the bottom line, the difference in the total, it's about $900,000. Is that what we expect to spend between now and the end of the fiscal year? Because
No, I guess my question is that we're estimating to spend $2.1 million by the end of this year,
Yes, ma'am.
and we're asking to budget 5.2. I just want to be sure
No.
about that.
That's,
No?
you got another page on here.
Okay.
The next page, 3.1,
Okay, so 3.7, and we're asking to...
3.1.
3.1, and we're asking for 7.8.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And we could explain that.
Okay.
As I said, there's a difference, it's $1 million in your development account.
Okay.
Okay. there's an additional $1 million in your development account. A lot of the 4B project, we got 1.12. It's things we're doing now, but we haven't paid, so we carry that money over. That's $1.2 million. The other thing we have in here is the building, $1.5 million. That is for 4th Street. You guys pledge $1 million for the 4th Street property, and there's some asbestos abatement that we're going to have to pay for. That's that $1.5 million. So when you look at those three line items, that's about $4 million. Additional $4 million.
$1 million over what we spent last year.
Yes, ma'am.
Which includes
That's
those,
projection, yes.
right, which includes those things that we had already budgeted this year, and then we're just moving them over?
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of that money we're not spending. And what I would like you guys to, if you go back to the very first page, where it shows your budget, and you look at that estimate, okay? They are estimating that by the end of the year with your debt service, because your debt service not showing on your other, about $4 million. That's your expenditures. Yeah, your revenues, you see your revenue. I think your revenue is going to be a little higher than that. In fact, it is a little higher. I think it's about 2.9 right now. Is that right? For sales tax?
Yes, 2.9.
Yeah, and we're projecting about another about
982,000.
another $1 million. So you'll be getting about 3.9 million, about $3.8 million in sales tax. The other thing you have here is in the bottom, at the end of the year, where it says fund balance beginning of the year and fund balance at the end of the year, you're going to see there's a difference of about $60,000. But what you guys going to have in the bank beginning October 1, right? That's the fiscal year.
October 1.
It's $8,339,552. And if you look at the proposed budget with the increase that we asking to increase, and it's a lot of the expenditures, at the end of the year, you're going to have, I think you're going to have about $4 million. After everything is paid next year, you're going to still have $4 million in the bank. Yes, sir. That's with everything paid, all your bills paid.
We're anticipating an additional $4 million worth of projects for next year
Yes, ma'am.
over this year.
Yes, ma'am. And that is...
Or is some of that carryover
Yes.
from this
Some of it's
year?
carryover. The addition of this home going to be 549 Proctor. 549 4th Street, okay? The addition of the development account, we went from 1.5 million to 2.5 million. That's another $1 million. And the other increase was the 1.2 million in 4B. See, because a lot of it that's being carried over, so it's counting against next year's budget also. Normally we just carry 300,000, right, Rachel, for 4B.
Yeah, for 4B, but
Three-
we fund $300,000 per year. Whatever we don't spend, we have to rebudget into the next year. This is our last and final funding for the affordable housing. So we're carrying over fiscal year 16, 17, 17, 18, and then 19 will be 300,000. So it's 270, 270, and 300,000.
So how much did we spend this year for that?
This year, only 30,000 out of this fiscal year. Last year, we only have 2 homes that are complete and 2 down payment assistance that we have done so far from the beginning of the program to today's date. 30,000 was expensed last year, fiscal year, and 30,000 this year. So a total of only $60,000 so far has been expensed from that line item.
So if we don't build all those houses this year, then that money goes away?
No, ma'am.
It rolls over.
Yes.
And that's what Rachel is saying. The first year, we carried over 270,000. This second year, we're carrying over another 270, but
We're
they build it.
funding 300,000
Right.
this year,
We
so that's
funded-
that total.
Right. And we may close on 4 houses, so it may not be 270, it may be 100 and something.
Yeah, I guess my question was this not a 3-year project?
It is.
Okay.
But
So if we don't build the 10 houses from this year, the 9 from last year and the 9 from the year before that, some of that money goes away, or we have to revisit it?
No, ma'am.
The proposition allow us to roll the money over to the next year.
We just can't fund it anymore.
Can't fund it anymore.
Okay.
But it rolls over. And as we all know, the first year was a tough year because of a lot of, we had to acquire the land, we had to have an environmental testing of the land, we had to dig up the concrete. It took us a year to get started, really, a little more than a year, because of all the, government regulation.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just wanted to be sure that that money just I didn't remember what the proposition
Yeah,
said.
the proposition allow us to
That
carry it
we
over.
could
Yes,
continue
ma'am.
to carry it over,
Yes.
or did we have to spend it all in that 3 years?
No, ma'am.
We just
It-
can't fund it anymore after this year. So whatever balance is at the end of fiscal year 2019 is what we're going to keep carrying over, and if we expense from that year, then we'll carry over the difference until it's zeroed out.
So we can build for the next 10 years if we don't get.
No, at next board meeting, we'll give you guys a report. We have a plan. I think now that all those stuff been done, all the environmental have been done, the concrete slab have been picked up, we have a plan where we could show you that by September 2019, 30 homes will be built. In fact, they're going to start on 5 more homes next week.
So that budget don't have to be adjusted due to the increase of material and stuff like that?
No, sir. And let me, Ms. Holmes, on the 4B, this particular proposition, because we knew we was going to have some slack time, we worded that we could carry over the money. A lot of time in the proposition, we say that if they don't use it, it reverts back to EDC. But this proposition, we knew that it was going to take us a while to get the land prepared. So we asked the voters to allow us to carry over that money.
Mr. Smith, in reference to your question about the increase in materials, the funding here is only for down payment assistance. And that's it, not materials.
Yeah. And we, let me just explain, Mr. When the client come to us for these homes, they have a loan with a bank, and we really deal directly with the bank, because that's at closing we pay part of the closing cost to reduce the note, but we paid on behalf of the client. You know, we don't really deal with the client, we deal with the closing company.
there any more questions? Are any more suggestions for changes, or is everyone okay with what we set forth for next year? Mr. Baptiste?
Well, we don't have it on the agenda, but at your next month, what month is it? June, July, August, we're going to have to ask you guys to approve the budget as we're presenting it today. So, because we have to submit it. I thought I had it. That's the other thing I didn't put on the agenda. I got to get this to the city manager because our budget, your budget, become part of the city manager's budget that they present to council. So at your next board meeting, I will ask you guys to approve the budget as you see it today. If you all do not want to make any changes, if you all wish to make any changes, let's do it now.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts about the budget? Okay. If there are no questions, I guess we can adjourn the workshop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our regular board meeting starts at 6. Right, yeah. So our regular board meeting starts at 6. All right, I got 30 minutes. We had a great budget workshop. I think the board members were able to ask questions, and we appreciate the hard work that Rachel and Mr. Baptiste put into preparing the workshop information. Board, you have a copy of the minutes from the June 4th meeting.
Move they be approved.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes from the June 4th meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Mr. Baptiste, if you move forward with communications, if there are no presentations.
Yes, ma'am. No presentation. Your first communication is from Port Arthur Chamber of Commerce Leadership Breakfast. That will be held on July the 24th. This time it's going to be at the Port Arthur Civic Center. And what we have normally done, those of you who want to attend, if you guys make Rachel, Joni aware, we get individual tickets. Or however you guys want to do. We normally go individual tickets.
Okay, thank you.
So just give Joni a call if you guys want to go.
All right, thank you.
Johnny, have you already asked us about this? Has any of us made reservations yet? No. Oh, okay. I get them.
You can put me down.
The second communication you guys have is from from Ed Jones, Trenton Scott, financial advisor. I think this guy's a hometown guy. Open office here. You have an open house on the July the 10th, which is tomorrow, from 2 to 4 at 8700 9th Avenue, and you have opened an invitation to you guys if y'all want to be present.
Thank you. I understand he moved to do this, so I think that's really a great thing. So if we can go out and support both these events. There are no speakers. Any unfinished business? Consent agenda items. We'll move on to the non-consent agenda items. Agenda item number 1, to discuss for possible consideration approving the acquisition of 9501 Jade Avenue by Phoenix Enterprise Partners, LLC. Mr. Baptiste.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, in your package, we sent you guys the email and the documents that they sent to us. I think, Guy, is it the bylaws says that when someone
acquires, there's a transfer of property in the business park, then you all are required to approve that. And you've done this in previous circumstances with other properties, and you actually did it with this property when Bowen took it over from Dr. Ali's company, who was the original developer of that tract.
Recommend we go ahead and accept it?
Yes, I think Mr. Baptiste can tell you, and any of you that have time to go by the park, as you all may recall, the property was in, let's say, a state of disrepair, and the new owners have, and Crystal she keeps an eye on it, can say that they've made a concerted effort to bring the property back to a much improved condition so that it's not an eyesore in the business park. And hopefully this group, which appears to be so, is capitalized in a manner that they'll be able to make a good going of the business operations there. And we checked them out, and everything is fine from our end. So we are happy to recommend that the board approve the transfer of the property in the purchase by the Phoenix Enterprise Partners, LLC.
I so move.
No,
I think they recycle water and all.
they are, yeah, they're in the environmental business because that's basically what the setup has been since Dr. Ali had it, but I wasn't sure what product mix they had.
Same thing. The gentleman did visit myself and Crystal last week, had a very good conversation with them. They're going through the process of getting their permits and all this, whatever it takes to begin operation. I could tell you, like Guy said, they have done a tremendous job in making their property look more, they have cleaned up the property. It was a tremendous eyesore to the park. Those guys, they've gone in there and they've renovated the building itself, the land, they just cleaned it up.
But the only thing that we ever had a significant problem off the site, which I think Floyd and Crystal will watch, is that because from time to time, if it's in that same business line as before, a lot of the product can come in on those frac trucks, and they sit them and take the truck part and leave the frac unit sitting there from time to time. And we had a little problem with them kind of using that cul-de-sac and some of the street space is sort of an off-site free bivouacking area for some of their products while they were waiting to process it. We were able to work through that before, and I'm sure that Floyd and Crystal will make sure that the new owners understand that we do not expect them to use the street area as a part of their business operations, except for the transit purposes, but not as a place to leave their product outside of the secured area.
Okay, Mr. Stickley, I think you had a... It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2. Mr. Baptiste.
Yes, Madam Chairman, item 2 is to discuss water tapping and electrical line on the east to the west to provide water and electricity to Jade Avenue. And bringing it to you guys for discussion, we awarded a landscaping contract to H.R. Green, and Dean was the bidder. And within his bid, it was to bring the electrical line across on one end so that it could provide electricity to the monument sign. I was out there the other day with Elijah, and I got to looking. Let me make sure you guys understand. Jade Avenue Extension, they put the sewer line on one side and the water line on the other side. So the sewer line is on the west side of Jade, the water line is on the east side. So I have to bring the water line to the east side to provide water to the property. And the electricity is also on the east side of Jade. So I also have to bring electricity under that road to provide electricity to that park. And what I'm asking you guys, instead of having 2 contractors going there and bow holes, one for electricity and one for water, is just to go out there for bid for have one contractor board. And I would like to do it both on the north side and the south side, because I got to provide water and electricity to that park.
Right.
And it's about 3/4 of a mile long, that track, you know. So what I'm asking is to go back to HR Green and ask them to pull reduce the costs that we were going to pay for them to boat a hole to bring the electricity, and just go out for bid, because it's going to be pretty expensive, not about $60,000 to $70,000. Go out for bid to have somebody bore a water line and electrical line on both the south end and the north end of Jade Avenue. Does that make sense, guy?
Makes sense.
Yes, and for discussion purposes, most of y'all know that the way those lines are laid, the water and sewer are always separated, and we knew when we put Jade Avenue extension in, and when we bought the property, we reported to the boards at that time that this would ultimately be required. I do think it makes sense for them to bore the lines. Ultimately, you might as well do it for the electricity, but it's most important, I think, for the water, because ultimately, I anticipate, as all cities will, for fire protection and for water flow, that they're going to ask you eventually, would you build out the west side Jade Avenue Extension Business Park? They're going to want you to loop that line. And so you'll probably be boring at north and south anyway at some point to do the looping that the city's water department's going to look forward to you all having along with their fire department. So I do think it makes sense, as Mr. Baptiste has requested, that they go ahead and do the boring north and south for the water. While they're doing that, they could do it as well for the electrical, since you'd be asking the same contractor to do the borings.
I move we authorize him to do that.
I guess they could give me direction to move forward on this, guy.
They'll need to come up, working with the city, on the specifications for both the conduit size for the electric and the line size. I'm sure it's going to be sized for fire protection. So, and that's a main line coming there down Jade Avenue. So I would guess that's probably at least an 8-inch line.
Yeah.
And you'd have to have at least 6, I think, for fire protection.
I have been talking to the city engineer about this deal. So, in fact, he and I and Cliff, the purchasing guy, was on the phone today about this thing. So, I think
you could approve it, subject to the meeting that the contract be for specifications that are satisfactory to meet the City of Port Arthur requirements.
So move.
To approve the specifications to be met by the City of Port Arthur requirements. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, Mr. Baptiste.
yes. Item number 3 is to discuss possible consideration ending to a purchase agreement for 459 Ford Street, guy.
Thank you, Madam President. Kate is really the author of this, and she'll be in a minute and answer any additional questions you may have. But as you all know, the EDA letter of approval and now the 30-day letter to meet the rest of the requirements is in the wind, and that's all very positive for the Port Arthur News Building. They do want the EDC to be able to evidence an ownership, or that you will have ownership in the building if the EDA funds are ultimately granted. So we talked about an option, but Kate had already prepared the draft of a purchase agreement, so she simply went back and took that and added in some other conditional clauses that included that the closing was conditioned upon the receipt of the EDA funds by the EDC, and it's giving us a long enough window anyway that if we have any other issues, then there wouldn't be anything at risk besides maybe the earnest money. But we get the earnest money back, obviously, if the EDA funds weren't granted. So she expanded our sort of outs, so to speak. It appears so far in our conversation, I think, Mr. Baptiste and I had, that that's going to be acceptable. But there are a couple other items that we'll discuss with the board in executive session, but we do recommend, subject to whatever the board wants to discuss, or if you want to carry it to executive session, the approval. So we might want to just defer this until then, but we will be coming back with a recommendation for approval.
Okay, so we are deferring item number 3 to executive session?
Yes, for the moment, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Item number 4, Mr. Baptiste?
Yes, to discuss for possible consideration terms and conditions of economic incentive grant for Dustin Seafood. I think we received all the financials from Dustin's. We do have some questions. I'm ready to recommend to you guys, but I need to sit down with Dustin's because I got some unanswered questions on, I just need to see more. The financials look good, but, I got to make sure that he does own the property. I got to make sure that that other $1 million that he's talking about is part of the project. I haven't seen that. The financials look good, but I just want to make sure everything is there. I'm willing to I personally spoke to him the other day, and his deal is he will not create any new jobs in the first couple of years. So I took all the job creation out. It is strictly going to be on the capital investment side. So I'm going to recommend $119,500.
But you're not ready for us to act on that because you still need to have some conversations with him, correct?
There's nothing going to happen. We're going to enter into a contract, and there's certain things that I'm going to make sure that if the board want to act, I don't have a problem. He's going to have to provide us with some documentation before we move forward.
Possibly we should wait on the,
Yeah. What I need to know, Guy, is, on his, I don't have the application in front of me, but on the application, he showed a value of the building. He shows the value of some equipment that he had. I need to see something, man,
Correct, and then obviously, this is a constructed building, but there's going to be significant improvements. What the board could do if they wanted to take some action, obviously, we do not have the economic incentive laid here in front of you to approve the final draft of, but you could, what we did before is we accepted the application as satisfying the NAISC code requirements and being a project that was either going to have, at that time, some job creation and capital investment. So if you want to basically approve directing the EDC staff and Kate and me to proceed with developing this incentive agreement along the amount of $119,500 for capital investment, we will build into that the same sort of requirements that we have with others that have either done new or rehabilitative, and that will be is that, and again, that will be subject again to the final negotiations with the incentive recipient and you all about whether we fund this in draw requests or at a certain point. As we have before, we've done sometimes draw requests and a final amount on the issuance of the CO or the full amount at the issuance of CO. We'll work with the incentive recipient, but I think if you give us the authority to proceed to work up the incentive draft to hand to Mr. Baptiste and the people at Dustin Seafood, then we can do that. At least that'll show them that we're moving forward, and hopefully we'll incentivize them to get you the rest of the documents they need. So the action item might be just to simply authorize us to proceed with the development of the economic incentive agreement in this amount based on job creation, but subject to final board approval.
You just said the job creation is going to happen. It's just not going to happen immediately, right?
Right. On his application, he showed there was going to be a couple of job creation, but like I told, when speaking to him directly, he said he wanted to create any jobs. So if you look at the incentive deal, job creation says 0. So everything's going to be based on the capital investment. And like Guy is saying, if the board wish, if you guys wish for Guy to prepare an agreement based upon this incentive amount and the other conditions that I'm going to I'm gonna need, because I need to see his money. I see ours, but I don't see his. His is just on an application. But his financials are fine. Well, it's a capital investment. They put it on the tax, it put the building on the tax roll. It put the building on the tax roll. And the other part of it, it will create a lot of sales tax because it's a distribution, a lot of sales tax. So what the city get is property tax and sales tax.
The board has done this in the past, and again, I think Mr. Baptiste hit on an important element. Obviously, if you want to proceed with the incentive, you want to make certain that the funds are there to complete the project. If it's completed and the CO is issued, then you're going to want to build the incentive agreement around that they have to continue to own or occupy or building be occupied, and the taxes be paid for a period of years, as we are currently working with another incentive applicant, and this would move, as I understand it, a commercial business operation that will have taxable sales in the city. So we would probably also, you'd want to build some of the incentive credits around the sales tax generation that's anticipated. And so I'm not diminishing not taking away from the important thing, which is job creation as well. But as Mr. Baptiste in his formula works, there's a piece for capital investment, there's a piece for job creation. It's just within the last few years that we've also started looking at what is very important to Port Arthur, and that is sales tax as well as ad valorem tax. So that's the reason we're now trying to kind of work back into this formula, what possibility there is for business growth, not only in personnel but in sales.
Yeah, I make a motion. Oh.
Retail?
It's going to be a distribution, frozen seafood distribution all over the country. It's going to be located in the old
Hernandez Solis
building.
Hernandez Solis.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Memorial.
Over on Thomas Boulevard and 7, Thomas Boulevard.
Yeah, I don't remember the street address, but
25th, right by Memorial and 25th, so 22nd, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Again, I make a motion.
Second.
It's been moved in second and the motion is to proceed with an incentive agreement draft
be brought back to the council.
to be brought back to the
you
council
all for final approval.
for final approval. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, Mr. Baptiste.
I'm going to, Crystal, you want to take this one?
Okay, number 5 on your agenda is to discuss enter into a pre-employment workforce training agreement with Program of Health Excellence. You may recall that company approached us last year as well, and you all approved entering into a training agreement with them for CNA, which is Certified Nurse Assistant Training. Ms. Elmore, who is head over that program, did not use the funds last year. She didn't go through with the training. There were some setbacks because of Harvey. So she came to us this month and would like to try for it again this year. We would go at the same amount for the $20,000. The only difference that we would suggest is if you look at the agreement that you have in your packets that was from last year, on page 2 of that, under the performance by PA EDC, we discussed with her the need to even out the student enrollment fee and the certification fee. So rather than paying her $250 for enrollment and $600 for completion, we would do half and half of the total fee after you reduce the fee for placement. So to kind of keep it consistent with the other programs we have, such as Lamar CDL, which they also get half upfront enrollment, half during certification, we would recommend doing that with her if you all wanted to go forth with an agreement this year.
Let me say this, Commissioners, before you guys start. Ms. Elmo came by, and you guys, like Crystal said, January through December. She also have funds from the CBG money from the city, and she used that money first. And when she was ready to start using our money, the storm came, so she was not able to use our funds. This year, like everybody else, CBG money is going down. City is not giving as much. She want to continue training folks, and she'll come back and ask us to reinstate her original plan. Last year, she didn't use any of the money, so all we're doing is just taking what she requested last year and asking you guys to do it this year.
Have a motion?
Move.
Is there a second? It's been moved and second to approve implementing the pre-employment workforce training agreement with Program for Health Excellence. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 6, Mr. Bettis.
Yes, ma'am. Number 6, to discuss possible consideration ratifying the submission of a proposal to Texas General Land Office for an economic revitalization program. I'm asking you guys to ratify. Council have already approved, and I had to go to the council because the application was due, I think, last week, and I knew you guys didn't have a board meeting, and I needed permission to submit, so I did go ask the council to submit. We did submit to GLO for an economic revitalization funds from under the disaster recovery program. So I'm asking you guys to ratify this thing. What we asking in the application, I gave you guys a copy of what we submitted. I think just the narrative, what we're basically asking for is about $4.5 million for deferred forgivable loans for small business, not to exceed $250,000.
Correct me, Floyd, but this does not require any contribution by the EDC. This is simply you all would be administering the program, and I don't recall what kind of administrative funds they provide, but there, as I recall, there was some.
On the disaster recovery, you have your homes fund, you have your infrastructure fund, you have your buyout fund. There was $100 million that was put aside for economic development. So I went after some of that money, $4.5 million. Not to say we're going to get it, but you don't put your name in the hat, you don't get it.
What do you need us to do?
Ratify it.
I move we ratify it.
It's been moved and second to ratify agenda item number 6. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 7.
I'm going to ask for Renata. Renata, you want to do this one?
Good evening. Neon Cloud Productions is a company that actually does videos for different economic development organizations as well as different cities. The Those of you who attended the TEDC conference had a chance to actually talk with Kai. And Kai actually is the, I guess you can say, the marketing guy that actually goes out and he does shows. So what I'm going to do, if you can direct your attention to the back, I'm going to show you. He's in Dallas, so he couldn't be here, but he wanted me to show you the video. And the video is of Dayton, Texas. If you could please bear with me, I'm sorry. Well, what I'll do, I'll walk up and you guys can kind of actually look at the video. Basically, this is a snapshot of Dayton. It's given all the analytical data of population here. It's also giving you an area shot of the view. It gives you all the analytics as far as like the highways, the population, the retail development that they have. It also talks about the residential acreage that they have available, the new homes that are coming available, as well as how many rail cars they have, and how many developable acreage that they have. They also give a snapshot of the fire department, as well as the police department, and industry within their business park. This is also a distribution facility that they have on their business park. This is another business that they have in their business park, as well as a major company that's headquartered there. These are homes in Dayton. It tells the median price, the median age. This is the high school. This is the high school auditorium, as well as the football field. It also talks about freight. It also highlights their industrial park, which is 1,500 acres, as well as retail leverage. This is the nursing home. I'll just give you a beautiful view of the area. The parks, the baseball park. All those tell us where. This is actually a home, the pool in the back. And that concludes the video. He couldn't be here, he's in Dallas, but he wanted me to share the video with you guys. And marketing is a big part of any city, any company, whatever it may be. And Mr. Baptiste and I actually have a video, but it only highlights our business park. If we're going to sell Port Arthur, we're going to have to highlight everything. The business park, the port, the school district. We partner with the school district. We're going to have to do everything. And so with that being said, I actually had an hour conference with Kyle last week, and I wanted to bring this to you guys' attention. I'm asking to possibly do a marketing video to highlight everything, to give analytics to those that are trying to locate here in our area. Because believe it or not, they look at all that information when companies are trying to locate, when you're trying to bring and recruit people in, they're looking at the holistic picture of everything. So that's it.
A question for you. I think this is a great idea. I'm wondering if we could ever partner, though, like for the cost of it with the school district and with the other places that we would be doing that and providing this kind of video for, in that EDC would not incur the whole cost of a project, something like this. Have we ever sat down with them?
I thought about that. Maybe even getting with the city of Port Arthur, everybody, all the
Right.
entities getting
Absolutely.
together to actually do a video like this.
Yeah.
Stakeholders, I think we ought to investigate it, possibility
Okay.
and get back with us on that, and also get it to where we can see it up on that nice screen that we pay a lot of money for.
We've actually had someone out to look at it. I don't know what happens. It'll work during the day, and for some reason in the evening, it won't work.
As a timer?
Yes.
We're throwing good money after bad.
So, okay.
Oh, I'm not saying don't vote on the item. I was just asking that question in that, I think it would be helpful. And when people spend their money, they have a buy-in as well. So
Right.
they're as committed to the video as we are, or to whatever that marketing strategy is, as we are, even CVB.
Who determines what goes in the video?
We do. Yeah, it's, actually, this is just, we can do it a la carte, but this is just, he gave me a quote based off of the video that I just showed you guys. But we can actually make it the way we want, and we can highlight whatever it is we want.
Shipping and Lamar and all kinds of things.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, with Lamar, the university and training, and all the kind of stuff we have.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Also, the video that the Southeast Texas Economic Development Council did, a lot of you hadn't seen that, but it is very, very good.
I actually was going to show you guys tonight, but I'm having difficulties.
I know, but, is that maybe duplicating efforts there?
Well, no, because that kind of, it talks about what's going on in our community, but at the same time, it also talks about the storm.
Right.
And so I guess when we're trying to sell Port Arthur, I would say keep it clean and fresh and have clean and fresh ideas and just things that we, like people that we partner with.
I wish we would wait and let you see if you could get other people to participate in it, though. It's not something pressing on us, is it?
Probably have a video, because they go to those markets.
And I think they market, certain things in the community. But I think if we market the community, it needs to be everything about the community, and maybe not the hurricanes.
Right. Right.
Any comments, recommendations?
My recommendation is pretty much what everyone else has said, that you reach out to the other entities and see if we can get collaboration with this project. And for me personally, I know at that point I'd be willing to say yes to the funding. But if everyone's going to benefit from it, we should see if they want to come to the table and participate financially in it.
Okay.
Any other comments? Thank you, Renata. We appreciate your efforts in wanting to get Port Arthur back on the map. Agenda item number 8.
To discuss for possible consideration amending the policy to the microloan program. Rachel?
Hey, good evening. Currently, we have a lot of actual potential clients that come in for a microloan, and of course, they have difficulties. May it be the credit score or some issues with the history of payments. Some things come across where the business it's a good business, but they can't pass some of the requirements. Currently, in our microloan policies, we don't have anything that states when they could come back and try again. So we would like to place in the policies that after 6 months, because most people go back and they'll work on certain things in their credit history or work on certain items that we can help them after they get those things done. But we have nothing that states after so long you can come back and reapply. And that's what we would like to do. We would like to put something in a policy that says 6 months. If for some reason we can't help you and we have to decline your request, that 6 months later you can come back and we could start the process again. Of course, we'd be looking at the financials all over again, current. They would have to resubmit everything. And at that time, hopefully, maybe their credit score might look a little better and some items might change. And we're just trying to see what we can do to help our small businesses.
What does it cost us to process that loan application and the credit bureau and all that?
We charge a $10 processing fee, application fee when they come in. The credit score we get from Retail Merchant, which we are a member of, so we do not pay for that. The other Dun and Bradstreet and other reports we work with EDC to get. So it's no additional cost to us. If by any chance that loan is approved, there's based on the amount of the loan that they get, there is a closing fee from $100 to, I don't know, about $300 or $400, but that's it. It's no additional cost to us.
How many participants we have in this program?
Right now, currently, we've only been able to give out one microloan to Finesse Beauty Bar. We have a lot of clients that we have a couple of them with really good ideas, but they just need a little longer to get things in place.
Just because it's not in there, what's stopping you from going ahead and say, okay, come back in 6 months?
I'm sorry.
What's holding you back from not being able to just say come back in 6 months?
We would just like something in writing in our policy. So, sometimes you get into those things where you want something in writing so that you don't feel like you're being unfair to anyone. So if someone else came along and, a month later or 3 months later, we just want something in place. We want clear policy that we can be fair and we could have to present to our clients.
Mr. Smith.
So with that being said, are there any things that we could go back and look at, like the interest rate, the credit score?
The interest rate is whatever the interest rate is at the time. The credit score is probably the credit report is mostly what we're going to probably be looking at. Sometimes we might need them to have a little bit more capital. It's just different. Everybody is different. It depends on the client. But we are running into a little bit of an issue. So, and some of them,
I think the Commissioner's saying, since we're looking at modifying this thing for putting a time where they could come back to you guys, do we need to look at modifying the credit scores or something like other than, is that what you was asking?
Right.
well, the credit score is, the current credit score, you have to have at least a 600 right now. If we go any lower, that just probably won't be very beneficial. I mean, that's pretty low. And then if you don't have a 600 credit score, you can have a cosigner. The cosigner have to have at least a 650. Now, that's being actually pretty generous, compared to traditional banks and right. So I don't think we want to go any lower than that. I think we would much prefer that they work on their issues to get them up to where they can get that assistance than to drop that credit score. But that would totally be up to the board.
I believe in the past is this the same loan program we looked at and made adjustments and modifications to, or was it another one? It was this one. So we already reduced the credit score for this particular program not long ago. I think the credit score is fine. 6 months, yes, we need to put something in writing as far as that's concerned. I don't know if it's something that we can do to help them to learn more about the importance of credit and business, because a lot of people have ideas, but to have an idea and run a business, that's two different things. And when coming to the EDC, doesn't matter how good your idea is, you have to really have your business affairs in order. I don't know if that's something we can help them with, but
Currently, if they come in and they have a issue where, for some reason, they don't have their business plan thought out very well, or they don't have one, we actually recommended them to Linda Tate. So they help them with those things. I'm more than sure there are classes that they can take in the community to help them out, to let them know exactly where they need to go and what they need to do. I guess when they come here, a lot of times they come in, they're excited, they have that idea and they want to come in and they found a place where they can get some assistance. But we just need, they sometimes need a little bit more help. But we have places out there that can help them out.
Well, could we encourage them to use those resources in that 6 months? I agree, they should be able to reapply. But, your credit score can change, but that doesn't mean you've learned a little bit more about the process of doing business. So
Correct.
if we could maybe encourage them along with that.
Yes, ma'am.
To participate, I don't know if require is what we need to do, but I think we need to encourage them to take courses and partner with groups, I guess small business.
Yeah, I guess there is a way that
association.
we can
Yeah,
go
we
out
can-
and make a list of actual references that they can go to outside of us. Once we decline them, we can give them something, a little help, a list of places that they can go for help with credit. We can do that. We can look into that.
Right, and business credit, not
Right,
just
exactly.
personal credit, business
Exactly.
credit.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that, because we help people a lot with the home loan programs. Well, that's, we encourage them to go through and do that, but I think there's something different about business credit and how to get lines of credit and all those things. And if we're going to give them a loan, we can encourage them and really help them to build small businesses.
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
And that may be a part of the application process.
And Madam Chairman, let me say, we currently do that. We sit down and we counsel those folks. We work very closely with the SBDC at Lamar, with Linda Tate. They go through that process. The SBDC do offer business classes, and we encourage those people to take some class. One of the things we haven't done in a couple of years is NDC provide a course free of charge. It's 4 hours called Cash King Supreme. Teach small business or teach people who are trying to go in business that cash is king and how to manage your cash, and also teach them a little bit about QuickBooks. So I think we could get into a lot of that stuff. But we do counsel those folks.
Yeah,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
long are those courses? Are they like 6 months, 3 months?
No. Some of them are just a 2 days.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and Linda Tate them offer them all over the area. Orange, in Port Neches, Neyland Groves, Port Arthur, they offer them all over. You just have to go. I think we need to get more involved in making these people aware that they need to start attending some of those things to better be able to run a business.
We want to help them get started, but we want to help them stay in business, too.
Correct.
Yes, I'm sorry,
I
John.
ask a question. On these micro loans, is it for, from what I understand about the requirements, is it for people that already have a business?
It could be for a startup also.
Because I saw this schedule of what they could borrow. They have to have gross revenue.
Right.
So, but it could be for startup.
Yes, sir. And if you look at it, Commissioner, it will say from 0 to. So that include that includes a startup. Revenue of less than 20,000. So they had, so that we include that as a startup.
What's the biggest issue you see with people applying for these loans?
I've ran into a couple. Probably the biggest one is just that credit score, the credit report. It's just, we're looking at a whole lot of information, and that's probably one of the biggest areas that we have a problem with. We only had a couple people who have come in with great ideas, but they just really haven't thought them out thoroughly. So when you get to the point where you're asking for certain things and you're asking, how much, revenue, how much are your sales and are expected sales, they don't really know. They haven't thought that far into it. So it depends on the client. It's different for everyone, but I see good potential in the people who come in. They just need to be directed in the right way. They might need a little bit more time to get some things straightened out.
I don't even know if this is possible, but it would be nice to have some small business owners to maybe create some kind of group that they would help other businesses mentoring.
Thank
you.
Right.
Mentor them in their, to help with that process.
And we could check into it, because I know Lamar University, they had SCORE, and they were a group of small business folks, retired business folks that was able to come out there and talk to. We'll check into that. But I don't know if Linda Tate them is affiliated with SCORE, but I know Lamar Beaumont, they had retired business folks that would come out there and talk to folks.
I would make a motion that we put in the microloan instructions or wherever it needs to be, that they can reapply after 6 months.
Second.
It's been moved and second to amend the loan application to indicate that they can reapply in 6 months guidelines. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. There being no other consent agenda items, we can move on to reports.
I'm back. Okay, originally I was going to show you guys the video that Mr. Stickley was talking about, which is a great video. It was actually shown at the Regional Economic Development Hour. Every year we have a forecast breakfast. And I'm going to tell you guys, I advise all of you guys to go to our Facebook page and watch the video. It's great information. It takes you from where we were. It goes back to when the storm hit and where we're moving towards for the future. You can ask them. It's a very, very good video. So I advise all of you guys to please go on our website. I'm sorry, it's going to be on our website, but on our Facebook page right now, and actually look at the video. Moving on, I'm actually working. I had a meeting with Kursky's last week. We're working on the newsletter right now. I think I showed you guys, these are the colors that we're going to go with this year. Very eye-catching colors. Just trying to nail down some of the things to put in the newsletter, because we want to make sure that we hit the high points, but we don't want to miss out on anything. So once we get everything solidified, we'll have our newsletter out. My goal is to have it out August of this year. Also, we have an editorial that will be featured in European CEO magazine. It actually, of course, this picture shows, of course, the hurricane, because we were impacted really, really bad. And it's a great read. If you guys want a copy, I'll make a copy for you guys. That way you can read it. So it's a really great read. Also, many of you attended the TEDC conference in Galveston. A lot of great information. A lot of talk about employment and training. Talked about marketing. It even talked about the STEM program, which is your science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They actually had a group of kids, for those of you that did not attend, that actually came and showcased robots. And they started at a young age all the way up. And I was very impressed with that because, as you all know, the world is changing and we have to prepare our little ones for the future. And so also just a lot of great information. I know I introduced you guys to a lot of people, but we can all use it at some point. So that's how I met Kai. Then moving on, also, I had the neon cloud, but I did that earlier. So that concludes my report. You have any questions for me?
You mentioned that that conference. I attended. It was a great
Yes.
conference. I had the opportunity to meet with a representative from the governor's office, and I'll be talking to you, Mr. Baptiste, about that because she'd like to come down and meet with us and share some information with us. Anybody else, before we move to the other reports, want to make a comment about the conference? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Renan. Operational report?
Last board meeting, I mentioned to you all I was going to come back and give you an update as to all of our current projects and clients. And I was able to speak to everybody, get an update, quick update for you all. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on what's going on with all of our projects at the moment, open contracts. I'll start with J.Z. Russell. J.Z. Russell joined our business park back in 2012. They expanded their business from Nederland into Port Arthur. Their business over the last 2 years has been a little stagnant, where payroll had kind of stayed the same across the board for the last 2 years. This year it has picked up with the new Total and Motiva projects. They anticipate more contracts, so which in turn means more employment. They have already started hiring more Port Arthur residents this year due to a new contract they have in Lake Charles, which is a pretty big project for them. So they're picking up and doing well in the business park. Our next business is Johnson Controls, which was previously Tyco Wheelfire. They are also in our business park, moved there in 2012 as well. They had an incentive agreement with us, and part of their agreement was to remain in the business park and in operation for at least 7 years. They are coming close to that 7-year mark next year. They have no plans to move. In fact, the new plant manager who has been there for the last month, he told me they do have a new in-house project coming up, which is going to bring on 2 more additional hires there in their facility. So they're happy, doing well, and constantly progressing. Gulf Coast Warehousing, which is the old Sears building on Woodworth Boulevard here down the street. They have 2 current tenants at the time occupying theirs. The majority of their warehouse space is occupied. The tenants are, I can't disclose who they are, but they are there for a long term. So they are doing well with their lease agreements with those tenants as well. Port Arthur Recycling, that was one of our newest ones. Some of you may remember that one. We entered into an agreement with them in 2017. They are a metal recycling facility that is located off of 365 near our business park, right around the corner. I visited with that facility. They have quite a bit going on. You can't see it from the road. Once you go in, it goes way back. So they've got a lot going on. Sam, who is the principal there, did tell me that he actually has plans to possibly bring in another company adjacent to his property that is going to run in conjunction with his metal recycling facility. So that's something we later on might come in and let you know that there's more growth going on there for him. AJ Entertainment, which is the Real Cajun facility and the warehouse facility behind it. You guys extended their agreement a couple of months back through November. there was some setback for him to get the warehouse portion of his facility completed because of the storm and some requirements the city needed for that to be done for him to get his certificate of occupancy and finish out his build-out. He did tell me he is going to be starting the build-out of the interior of that facility next week. He had to replat his whole property for the city, so that was pushed back a little bit more, but he does anticipate to have his CO by November, so that is also on track. KLV Ventures, which is a contract you all entered into late last year as well. They are in the process of rezoning their property. The city is going to be doing a survey of the property as well as notification to residents because they do have to rezone that property on Highway 73. They plan to go into the business park on Highway 73. So there are some steps he needs to take before he can begin construction in that business park. But that is moving forward. He does plan to construct, and as far as payroll goes, by the end of his agreement, which is a 3-year agreement, he should have a total of 14 Port Arthur residents. At this time, he's already met 7. So he's very much on track with his payroll. He's doing very well. He also trains his people there on the job, so hopefully we'll see him up and running in the 73 Business Park soon. AWC, they are our latest addition to the business park on Spur 93. They aren't in new construction. They took over a facility that was already there and vacant. They are still trying to get it up and running. I visited with them. They're getting their systems going, trying to get equipment in, so hopefully soon they'll be in operation there as well. Park Enterprises is the latest one you all have approved. If you recall, that is the agreement we had to do infrastructure for a multi-business building there on 9th Avenue. She also told me that because of the storm, and you'll hear that a lot of setbacks because of the storm, she's also put on hold her construction. She would have had her foundation laid by the end of this month, but unfortunately it has been pushed back. So she's talking with her contractors to find out when that'll start. So hopefully soon she'll be able to get that started. But she does have until 2020 to complete at least 2 of her COs for that facility. So she's on track as well. Going back to the business park, hadn't let you guys know, but as far as the storm goes, since we're talking about the storm, there was no facilities that received any water. In visiting with a lot of the places, they are very pleased and happy. There was one business who actually told me their corporate offices are thinking about bringing all of their local facilities and putting them centralized there in the business park because it didn't receive any water when 2 of their other facilities in surrounding areas had water in them. So we're very pleased. The tenants are very happy. Nobody got water. There was BOD Environmental, which you all discussed earlier. Phoenix has taken over it. They did have water damage, but it was due to problems with their roof. So they're fixing that up. The gentleman did come by last week, as Mr. Baptiste said, and they're doing a lot of work out there. The previous owners left those tanks in the back completely filled, and it sat there for about 2 years. So it was very hard to sell, but it got sold finally. The new owners are in there cleaning it up. They're doing really well with it. They're in the process of applying for their city's wastewater treatment permit. So hopefully we'll see that up and running, but it looks very good. So the business park is pretty much full. Of course, the RPS building, which is, I think, our largest building out there, it's still vacant, so hopefully soon we'll see somebody move into that building. But everything else is filled out there. And that concludes my operational report. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Crystal? Thanks, Crystal. Good job.
Thank you.
Rachel? Mr. Baptiste?
Loan Program. You guys had a committee, and I think Mr. Smith, you was on that committee, and I think Mr. Pena was on that committee. I don't know, who else?
Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Okay, so we need a new member to that committee. We have Mr. Smith and Mr. Anderson. There was 3 people. Or y'all just want 2 people, whatever y'all want to do.
Need 3 in the event there's a tie. Any volunteers? Okay.
John? Okay. The next thing I have, Madam Chairman, is, Guy, I'm learning so much about this federal grant, but there's a process where we're gonna have to put out some RFPs and RFQs, and I think we need a review committee to review those things. If any one of the board members want to be a part of that,
For a little more detailing, in case before y'all all jump in and decide you want to do it. see who wants to jump off the ship first. One of the things that Kate and I have had more than fun since our little storm last fall is working with governmental entities, acquiring disaster grant funds, or trying to get disaster grant funds from the federal government. What you find is that in 2016, the federal government moved, and I wouldn't say consolidated, but for a lot of federal grant programs, you're now looking at procuring virtually all your services under what is referred to as 2 CFR Part 200 for disasters at Subpart D. It's different parts for different types of grant programs. But at the end of the day, effectively, you still take your state law requirement, for example, architects and engineers, which is one of the things you'll be talking about procuring. You have the Texas two-step, qualify the best firm, then negotiate a fee. And then on non-professional services, you have, and those are RFQs, by the way, requests for qualification. And then you'll have RFPs, which again must follow the federal form for not only the procurement, but the method of pricing and your negotiation, even in RFPs for outcomes. For example, nothing can be done on the basis of a cost-plus contract. Historically, for your purposes, architects have often done their contracts as blank percentage of the final construction cost. That's not going to hunt for reimbursement under the federal guidelines. So everybody is learning the new normal, as we call it, and you have any number of things that have to be evaluated now. So what Kate, working with some of our clients, developed as RFQs for architects or engineering services, and is also working on RFPs for different general contracting services. We've looked at things from grant writing to architects to engineers to all sorts of professional type services. But what Mr. Batiste is referring to now is we no longer can just wear the helmet of an economic development corporation that gets to sidestep some state procurement rules because we're not a governmental unit. Now you are simply the grant recipient. And so any nonprofit, not just an EDC, is going to have to step through this same little minefield for your procurement. So what Floyd is asking you all is probably at the very beginning, because you've already done some preliminary work that's being paid for the preliminary part of the application. Now as you move forward into the actual grant portion, you're going to have to qualify and then negotiate a contract with an architect. You won't get to just select one. Secondly, you don't just select things such as your mold and other environmental remediation firms. There are several local firms, like there are several architects, so you're going to have to go procure that and then evaluate the best qualified firm and then move forward with a proposal. So that's what we're talking about as a review committee for doing both professional and what I would call I don't mean non-professional, but non-professional requirement procurement under state law that will then require you to follow the federal guidelines. As I said, we've got the thing, I think, pretty well put together as far as having all the federal contract mandated provisions. Everything now is the Davis-Bacon Wage Act. Everything is, of course, as it should be, non-discriminatory practice, anti-lobbying. All the federal provisions have to be in there. These people are going to have to register at sams.gov and all have to have a DUNS number. Most contractors do anyway, but not all of them are on sam.gov yet. So it's a process, but it's going to require some time that Kate and I would appreciate it if a couple members of the board or so want to serve with Mr. Baptiste and trying to put together to review those. So that's a little bit more of the details. And for those of you who just have a hard time falling asleep tonight, I can give you the standard terms and conditions for construction projects for these Economic Development Association grants or the summary of the EDA construction standards. And Kate can give you all, because my printer doesn't print this number of pages, the 176 pages that constitute the guidance manual for 2 CFR Part 200. just in case you're just bored to tears. We'll have plenty of reading material. Well, no, I just think we want you to know that we're going to need this. Obviously we got to know that we're going to get the money in the, under the tent. So, but I do expect that because of the 30-day approval letter, and by the way, thanks again to Floyd, thanks again to Crystal and all the people that have not only put together the application, but they've also supplemented a detailed environmental form, and I'm sure that was a ball of fun to do. And there's several other pieces of that. Huh? Well, and as I say, there's a number of pieces that are still in the process after we get out of executive session. If you approve this purchase contract, that's another thing we can check off the to-do list with Ms. Shorter and Lisa, their engineer. So it's been quite a process, but I do feel very good. The conversations we have with the EDA indicate that they have a lot of interest in this project and a lot of interest in Port Arthur.
You don't need that committee tonight.
No, this is just information from the executive director's report.
Any? Okay. This time we'd like to recess and move into executive session. A closed meeting or executive session will be held pursuant to the following sections of 551 Texas Government Code, 551.071, .072, .074, and .087. The items in the executive session will be discussed and acted upon in open session if necessary. This time we'll recess to executive session. I know. Somehow it wasn't fun. Like work.
Give it away.
It was good. I'm actually being it was very good. I could have eaten the whole thing, but my husband loves banana pudding. It's his favorite, so I'm actually being really nice and bringing the rest home. Since he's had to watch both kids, I guess he deserves it.
Make you feel a little stressed.
Yeah. So, I'll be nice.
Oh, you did see that. I'm sure you tossed it too. And then from Kim was a notice.
Yeah. But when I got it, I was like, are we expecting anything? I figured it was bogus, but I wasn't sure.
I'd like to reconvene the Port Arthur EDC. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Darrell Anderson. John Sharavis. Excuse me, Dallas Smith.
Here.
Ingrid Holmes.
Here.
David Stickling. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The agenda item number 3 was brought to executive session to discuss for possible consideration entering into a purchase agreement for 549 4th Street.
Thank you, Madam President. The one thing we wanted to add from the discussion from earlier in open session is, as we've reported to you all, that in order to release the $150,000 current lien on the property held by SBLT Investments will require a payment of $50,000 in addition to the previously estimated cost at somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000. So the new total purchase price will be approximately $75,000 to $80,000, but we still recommend the approval of the contract, which will allow you to proceed, but only if you receive the EDA grant.
I move we proceed with the contract.
Moved and second to proceed with the agreement as stated by the attorney. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
It's been moved and second to adjourn the July meeting.